Hello, it's May 26th, 2024. It's a Sunday evening, about 6 p.m. and just had a really nice rain. Not as much rain as I would have liked to, but a third of an inch or so, maybe half inch. A couple things to point out. That is a mock orange over there. It's just an ornamental blooming at the corner of my barn there. That smells really good right now. Been moving a lot of leaf mold soil around. I've done some mowing just in the last couple of days, so that things look a little bit fresher than they did before. Grasses and things had grown a lot because of all the rain we had earlier in the season, and this little patch of white clover looks really good right now. I kind of overseeded this into an area that the power line company had put some mat thing down and left it here, and it kind of killed off all the grass. And so once they removed that, I scattered the white clover seed and it filled in pretty well. So as we come up here, there's a little foxglove blooming. Some of the flowers I planted in this space near the gate are they're hanging in there. There's some lance-leaf crabs that's about to flower. There's pale purple cornflower. It's about to flower. Some ornamental alliums, a few different things, walking onions. And you can see, you'll see piles of what looks like straw. I've been mulching a lot with my bagging mower clippings, and that's really a great feeling to turn mowing from just a totally wasteful entropic activity into something that's a little bit useful, where you've got hand armful of nice mulch to deposit every couple of minutes somewhere, and some fertility. Service berries are coloring up a little bit, and the birds have been at them. The cedar waxwings and some other birds have been eating them, pretty well before they're ripe, as far as I can tell. But maybe they're eating the ones that have problems and turn ripe a little bit faster. So yeah, as we look over here, nothing too interesting to see over here. There's a few odd irises here and there. Those are kind of mid or peak bloom, maybe a little bit past peak. Some of these came from my grandparents or great-grandparents, and some of them came from other places. I don't want to get into all that story, but anyway, they're from various places. So bloom-wise, the Ninebarks are just finishing off, and we'll see a couple of those that are at the tail end. This Romatnia quince is blooming, but it has a bunch of funky leaf problems. I don't know what's going on with the leaves of this thing this year. Does not look too good. Sounds like a bunch of robins are calling. Maybe I'm near one of their nests or something. With all the rain we had early on, things like cup plant and green-headed coneflower have grown really well. I've also got some nettles that are about 4 feet tall. And yeah, cup plants are very thick this year. You see some brambles in bloom around here. And these cages, I started adding these cages. They're 4 feet tall and 18 to 20 inches in diameter maybe, because the deer, they wouldn't leave certain things alone. And with those cages, especially shorter things, have a little bit more of a chance to have some lower leaves. Like you'll see this little Ninebark here, the deer have been doing a pretty good job of clipping all the top growth of that off. And there's one little flower, but we'll see some better examples of those flowers in a few minutes. Native rose there, putting on some good growth. The deer do eat that as well. And wildflower wise, we don't have much going on yet. Golden Alexanders are really the star of the show this week. Spiderwort is blooming. These bloom just in the morning and midday. At nighttime they kind of close up. But we can see some little action here. These golden Alexanders, I'm not smelling much scent right now, but they remind me, the scent of them is nice. It reminds me of one of my elementary school's teachers' perfumes. Here's, I think that may be a wine cap mushroom remnant. I had some wine caps that popped up in the mulch. And you can see there's a few plants that have grown through the mulch that I put down. Here's wild senna and the native petunia, I think those are. I don't remember. I could be wrong, not petunia. I don't know, some old grandma flower that people plant. I can't recall if it's petunia or something else. But yeah, look at these cup plants, and they are holding water, but the stems are just very, very thick The growth is pretty lush, so that's nice to see. There's another serviceberry there. And yeah, a lot of things that are going to flower after a while, but only the golden Alexanders are really blooming very much at the moment. Fruit-wise, there's this peach tree doesn't seem to have any fruits this year. Some things, like no peaches on any of the trees that I've seen. There are some apples on some trees, but not others. Pears, there are some on one of the trees. What else? Plums, I've not seen much in the way of plums. And you can see my paths, yeah, look nice for the moment. I've given some more mulch to various things. Whoa, this American plum got knocked over with all the weight of the rain or something. So yeah, I kind of thought it might be nice to shoot a video now with just the aesthetic quality of the raindrops on the leaves with sunshine. Looks kind of nice, and sort of the lower angle sunlight. This red, I think it's red Geneva or something, I can't recall. It's a red fleshed apple, has reddish leaves, but that one is a real particular favorite of the deer, so I had to put a cage around that because the poor thing's never had a chance to grow at all. And I want to show, this looks really pretty here. These are some beautiful irises. Check out the dew on those. We've got a persimmon that I grafted here. Trying to shoot into the sun if I can avoid it. Sorry, my hand sometimes I use it to cover up the lens because otherwise I get lens flare pretty badly. So yeah, this pear tree has a few pears on it, or a good number. And then the purple and white flowers, those are Dame's Rocket. Those have been going for the last maybe 2 weeks almost. The last video was probably 16 days ago or something. It's been a little while. So yeah, we're just a couple days early now at my house, which is just a mile away. It's a little bit warmer microclimate, and these false indigos are in full flower, but most of the ones here are not showing the flowers yet. The flower spikes are out, but the little inflorescences are not. So yeah, here I planted a Monarda didyma there. See if that will take. I planted one here last year, but it didn't seem to survive. And if I look over here, you can see I've got a pretty good ground cover of ferns. The nettles are over waist high. Poison ivy is growing crazy. I really need to manage my poison ivy problem. I got some 30% vinegar that I'm going to maybe mix with some dish soap and see if that will knock it back quite a bit without having to resort to something really toxic. But I've given a lot of plants away, sent things home with people. I still have some I have to plant out here. Some maybe could go home with some other people. But yeah, it's been a busy spring with plants, although I haven't done much with these air printing beds. Look at the steam rolling off of that. Maybe you can see, maybe you can't. That dark soil there. Interesting. It's warmed right back up after the rain. So now it's a bit like a steam sauna here. This bed here, there's some growth, but it's not, going gangbusters. There's some black currants, wildwood elderberry, some gumi seeds, although I don't think I've seen any of those that look definitively sprouted. Red currant, kiwi, which is not sprouting, a grape, which does have some growth, although a lot of these things, they've got buds that want to make flowers and fruit, and they're kind of putting the cart before the horse. So if I see the little flowers starting, I will nip those off so that it's not trying to make fruit on something that has no roots. There's some little miscellaneous seedlings here, some little baby hazelnuts and apples and service berries and etc. Here I've got some willow cuttings. I've got Japanese air potato along with native groundnut there. Got some willows here. The water tanks have a decent amount still, and you may see here and there in the mulch I've got babies, those baby hazelnuts. that some critters planted for me over the winter. In this garden, you can't really tell, but I have done some mulching, cut the grass down a few times and mulched with it, put some cages around a few things to try to preserve a little bit of the new growth of stuff. The deer just are relentless on. That Russ's Perfection currant there's finally get a little bit of a chance now that I put that cage around it. The Chinese tune tree here, I'm probably about a week late for the prime picking of the young growth. You want it when it's kind of this reddish fine stuff. You don't want these big older leaves like this. It's probably too late. And this is maybe kind of too far gone. But that is a nice vegetable, you know, this time of year. Has a interesting flavor. It's savory. People say onion, soy sauce. People say beef bouillon. It's got a pretty strong flavor for a plant. Turkish rocket is still flowering, kind of nearing the end of its flowering. I have some asparagus that's popped up. You know, I planted this asparagus, but most of them didn't survive. There's a few currants, gooseberries, more honeyberries, comfrey that the deer keep eating. Some brambles here. I don't know if I want to walk all the way over here. I do have a Japanese tree lilac that's probably flowering next to that little shed over there. But is it worth walking all the way over there? Probably not. Blueberries have already flowered and maybe set a little bit of fruit. So back here, yeah, the grass is pretty tall and wet. I have not mowed paths here yet. I have in the back 40. That red leaf thing is an Asian pear, I believe. I need to put a cage around that. That's poor thing. It's been forgotten for years. So that you'll see there's still some bramble blooming. There's some poison ivy that needs to be addressed. I think this is American plum, sucker, some other trees maybe there. And yeah, you may see there's a lot of reseeded false indigo in this area particularly, and they didn't do that for years and years. I didn't see any seedlings, but something must have been favorable in the last few years that's initiated that, because now there's lots of seedlings showing up in certain places, not everywhere. So yeah, this is false indigo. Hopefully we'll find one that's got some flower spikes actually in flower. So yeah, it's interesting the look of things after a rain. Some things look really beat down. Looks like we've kind of reactivated the cedar apple rust fruiting bodies on that cedar tree there. They were kind of dried out and shrunken up until today. Here we've got more. This is a Walter Burbank. Walter, is that his name? Luther Burbank, not Walter. A white fruited blackberry. And here's a bumble buddy who's maybe taking his rest there on the leaf. There's a nice false indigo. That one's probably never been, maybe it got trimmed once early on. It's got more of the kind of ragged appearance that unpruned ones have. So I want to walk through this little thicket here and show a couple of things. I did some thinning here to give more light to a little pawpaw that I grafted, and then this good hazelnut that I've got here. Felt like it was getting a little shaded out. So some of the grafts I've done have been really successful, like this apple here, a little too successful. And look at this thing weighted down with just the rainwater. So what happens, pardon the sunlight here, let me shake this off a bit. It kind of flops over in the wind or in the heaviness of the rain, and that's not really great because it can lead to a floppy plant, and so a permanently floppy plant. So sorry, I thought I saw a fruit setting on a new graft. See, look at this poor stupid thing up here. This is an Asian pear, or I'm sorry, it's not an Asian pear. I think it's a kefir pear. I grafted this 2 years ago, and it grew really well. And last year I had to cut the top of it off because it was like way too long and floppy. And so this year I'm gonna have to do the same thing because look, it's flopping over again. And there's a Ninebark that's finished its bloom. And you kind of get these neat looking, the seed structures get kind of this interesting reddish coloration, and later on they will be like bubble wrap. They're not to that point yet. As they dry down more, they will be poppable. It's kind of fun if you have OCD. So I've done grafting on autumn olives, wild autumn olives. I grafted a bunch of gumi and one cultivar of autumn olive onto a few things. And some of these are just showing the most tentative little bud break here, nothing too conclusive. But that's been probably about 3 weeks. And these are not great examples. There are others that have pushed out leaves that are a couple of inches long. There's one there too. And here's the Ninebark that's, still got some white flowers on it. The surface berries, the birds have really been active on those, enjoying the fruit. So back here, see the fruits of my mowing efforts. Looks a little neater and a little easier to walk through. This area here I've been paying a little bit better attention to this year. There are 3 rows of chestnut that were supposed to have been a coppice block. They're planted pretty close, probably 2 or 3 feet apart from each other. And they've never grown worth a shit because the deer eat them down all the time. But some of the new stuff that's planted in this bit, which is technically in the right-of-way, there are sprouts from a nice crabapple that used to be here, and the root sprouts of that I've grafted some things onto, and then also some root sprouts of an old pear that used to be here. And then there's a few things I planted, like sea buckthorns, which have not done well here at all. And what else? A couple other things. Serviceberry, I think. So it looks like I missed the flowering yet again on the sea buckthorn plants. They must have done it pretty early. Maybe they're all male. I mean, I think I must have planted 15 or 20 of these things over the time at this garden, but only this one here has done well. I have a couple others that are just sort of clinging on to life. This one here is still barely alive. I've got some that are even worse looking than that. So not real encouraging with that species at this garden anyway. Yeah, I've got a couple of really crappy ones there and there. Honey locusts are doing okay in the overstory. I have seen a few incidental mushrooms pop up in this area too. Had some big King Stropharia winecap mushrooms here last summer, and yeah, in these wood chip areas. You can see more of my grass mulching. And here I did wood chip over this row of chestnuts, and the other rows I've kind of come in with a little hand sickle. The middle one I haven't done that much with. The farther one, I think I sickled it down and then put my grass clippings around it. So trying to, suppress the grass growth a little bit as I can. It's not working that well though. This quack grass stuff is pretty tough. So here it looks pretty, but there's not really much flowering happening back here yet. There's a little hairy vetch, and this is I don't remember which coreopsis. That's just it's not very close yet. Got one little lanceleaf coreopsis here, and then a couple others that are on deck. And may have to do some thinning still in the overstory here. I've got some black locusts that could probably stand to come out, be thinned. Another Ninebark that's still got flowers. You can see the deer eating all the leaves off this chestnut here that they can reach. And then over here I've got a another cage I put on another sad little chestnut, and that's some regrowth from last year. I took this was a multi-trunked cherry that I took down. And here we've got some false indigo that's must have self-seeded because that's not black locust sprouts. So yeah, it's cool to see those moving around the garden on their own, making the ecosystem a little more complete. Here's a cup plant holding water nicely after the rain. You might see some frogs or some butterflies or moths or something lounging in there. Say moths? Yeah, I don't know. So here is a Illinois everbearing mulberry that I grafted last year, and it had a second trunk that I cut out, and I put the cage around it, so deer mostly have left that one alone. And here is another one of my autumn olive grafts, not showing too much movement yet. And as we come up the laneway here, there's my nice big chestnut, the timber chestnut. Looking good. Little chestnut there that needs a cage. Somebody shooting in the background, that's cool. Welcome to America, celebrate Memorial Day. So here, this is a Chinese type chestnut with some multiple funky trunks. This is a chinkapin chestnut. God, I hate when it takes me a few seconds to think the name of things. And these have a lot of male catkins that are about to happen. They've sent out the growth, but they're not really open and flowering yet. A really heavy set of catkins on these things. And I did mow up the trail here. And then here's a nurse log that's pretty much gone back to the earth here. I put nurse logs out initially around a lot of my plantings, along with nitrogen fixing shrubs like the Amorpha. And that seems to have been a pretty good benefit to the site. Something interesting happening there. Maybe a little browse. So this is ironweed, and I did have some of this growing right in my path and I had to mow some of it down. You know, you have to keep paths somewhere, so I try to avoid mowing all the wildflowers that I can, but sometimes it invariably happens. But they kind of do spread out into areas where you're not mowing if you let them reseed everywhere. And then those are also, you know, if you have some that are growing in paths, those are good candidates for digging up and giving to friends. Look at the catkins on these things. Holy shit. That's just wild. Got the swamp white oak here. Looking good, growing strong after a decade or so. It's quite a tree. It's got some, you know, galls. Oak trees have so many thousands of things that use them. I got some little weird leaf spots happening too, but that's okay. The tree will shake it off. You know, so far, knock on wood, I haven't had many of the gypsy moth, spongy moth caterpillars here. They are around, and other people have them really badly, so I'm thankful I don't need, you know, all those additional stresses to all the stresses I already have, but I'm sure they'll show up here eventually in force. Chinkapin chestnut here, deer, mauled, seedling chestnut there. This is a calorie pear candidate for grafting there. We'll graft that any day now. Oh, I've got some pecans here. There's a multiflora rose. And I've cut most of these down on the place, but that one I haven't yet. So maybe after it flowers, but before it sets the fruit, I will cut this down. I don't know, these flowers, they don't have much of a smell. So there's a couple of persimmons down the way here, more pecans, more chestnuts, an apple that I grafted. Of course, sumacs everywhere. Here's some kind of colorful young growth on a pecan. So these pecans, I did take some scions from my friend Allison's champion tree. I'm going to try grafting those onto something, but they weren't really good quality scions. They were, you know, much smaller diameter than I would like, and not ideal. So this thing really needed a cage badly. You can see all this new growth just in the last week or 10 days after I put this cage on, because the deer, this is probably 8 years old, the deer had just kept it to a little stub for all these years. Oh, there's some pawpaws down the way there. I'm not going to really go show those, I don't think. The rain barrels are kind of getting full. Some nice ground cover action here. Nice mossy stuff happening. Sometimes you have to stop and appreciate that stuff. Easy to go unnoticed. I will show over here in the thick of all this sumac overstory. I had a buartnut that was variegated in the bed, and of course the deer are eating it too. And it had quite a bit of variegation, although it's not, it seems like it's losing that now. I'll probably should need a cage on this thing too. And variegated trees or plants, it can be a sign that they're, you know, not very good, or they may lose the variegation over time. So we'll watch that one and see what happens. I thought it was worth planting it out because it was a nice seedling anyway. It was about 4 feet tall in the bed, so I thought it's worth trying. Here's an apple that I grafted that needs a cage. I think that might be the reddish one too that the deer really like. And here's another, sorry for the sun, floppy pear graft. This was grafted 2 years ago maybe. And it's just about healed over. I keep saying that every video and look like an idiot. But it just a very little bit more to go and it'll have closed up that wound. And I'm glad it's not setting fruit yet at this size because it's too floppy. I wouldn't want it to try to bear that burden. So yeah, done some more mowing through here. Chestnut graft that I did, and of course the deer have marauded that, whatever they can reach there. The Ninebark that's finishing off its flowering. I believe there's another boar nut down there that I maybe direct seeded that one. And here is a poor serviceberry. I don't know if I planted this or if this came wild from the birds. It looks like a different species than some of the ones I planted. But look at the cedar apple rust. You know, it is actually brushing branches with a cedar, and you can see there's a rust growth. Jesus, it's disgusting. Everywhere on this tree. So yeah, it's a real crucible for some of these susceptible plants. Here's one that's also pretty bad. This one's maybe 8 or 10 feet tall, but yeah, pretty bad leaves. And some years are worse than others. It kind of depends on what weather we get. But hopefully that won't kill the tree off. We'll see. So looking down the way here, kind of surprised to have some pretty tall tulip poplars. There's a couple of them there that I planted, and they're probably, I don't know, 25 or 30 feet tall, and they haven't ever flowered yet. I thought they would flower by that size, but I guess not. Got some dewberry ground cover here and a poor chestnut that's just ripped to shreds by the deer. The wild chrysanthemum daisies are blooming right now also. So yeah, a couple of catalpas. I think I planted that one, and maybe that one just came in as a seedling from this other one. And this is a false indigo that's probably never been cut. It's got more of that kind of ragged appearance too. If you do prune them, maybe if I remember, I'll point out ones that I have pruned. They get, you know, a lot more growth in general and make a lot more biomass. A couple of hazelnuts here. Some Japanese walnuts over in this area. It's kind of a walnut area in the middle. I don't usually walk up this main path, but there's a couple of, I think there's an English walnut and a Oikos hybrid walnut and another English walnut and some other wart nuts and things. And I think there's a couple of butternuts out this way as we get into past these taller trees. That is the persimmon area. And I'm kind of shocked that I've never have had persimmon fruit yet after so many years, and some of the trees are pretty good sized. They've flowered a few times, but no fruit. So maybe this year, maybe next year, maybe I'll live long enough to see persimmons and pawpaws on trees that I've planted. So I think yesterday when I was walking around, I did see just a couple of the beginnings of flowers on this thing. And yeah, if you could be here to smell this when the whole, yeah, there's the little gold colored flower parts. I think the rain might have washed some things away, but little pollen things. But these things smell so good when they're in bloom, and the pollinators go crazy for them. So yeah, there's many persimmons. I think I've got 70 or more persimmons over here. At least 70 on the site. If not, you know, there's probably at least 50 or 60 back here. Some decent oak trees. There's the American plum thicket. There's some pretty strong growth on this pine tree here. There's some big candles coming off of that thing. And there's a American plum that I transplanted. I looked at that yesterday, and there's not a lot in the way of fruit on that this year. I'm not sure if it was a frost problem or what. Some kind of spruce that I planted, probably. Serviceberry I transplanted with a tree spade. Some little hazelnuts here, and there's more chestnuts back there. Sorry for the lens flare. I'm trying to get out of the sun here. So yeah, there's some chestnuts in the distance, hazelnuts closer to the path here. Oh, I almost walked past it without pointing it out. This weird thing This is, I think, called a white fringe tree. And I kind of had forgotten that I even had this thing for years. And then I noticed it a year or two ago that it was not only, it was still alive, and now this is the first year I've seen it bloom. Really unusual blooms and a little bit of fragrance. But this is something from oikos, and I believe it's related to olives somehow, not maybe real closely. I think it has a fruit that possibly could be used to make a small olive type thing out of. But anyway, it's a neat looking tree. Looks very small. It could be a deer problem too. Maybe the deer are killing it off. But that was exciting to discover that last week, the flowers of that thing. Can't remember the botanical name, but I think it's called white fringe tree is the common name. So we'll see how big that gets. It may just stay a little dwarf. So as we come up here, not much of interest here. There's a few oak trees. That's an oak tree that I planted. That is one. This is one. There's more persimmons back that way. There's a few more hazelnuts here in the mid ground. I filled in, there's kind of a depression here from driving vehicles back here, so I filled this in with wood chips just to make it a little easier to mow, and also be a little bit of a sponge back here for moisture. So yeah, there's a lot more new hazelnut, or not hazelnuts, chestnuts back here. They're really nothing to show yet. They're still tiny plants. That's a nice looking oak tree there. A couple of young hazelnuts there. Another white pine with some real serious growth happening. That double-trunked apple tree unfortunately doesn't seem to have any fruit on the grafts that I made. Curious to see what cultivar that is, because it's long gone, the label, if there ever was one. Some red osier dogwoods here, getting slammed by the deer. Autumn olive looking half dead. There's a bird. It's perched on one of the bamboo canes. That's a good reminder why you have to put a strap a piece of bamboo to your new grafts, because birds like to perch on the tallest thing in the area, and they will perch on your graft and snap it right off. Here's some galls from last season. I want to say this may be a chinkapin oak. I have to check my maps. I could be totally wrong on that. Or dwarf something oak. I've got 4 of them here, and this one has a bunch of galls too. Kind of see here through the dead autumn olive. And then here's another nurse log that is, you know, pretty spongy. So that's doing its job. That's what we want to see. Yeah, these oaks, they have not gotten big, and they haven't grown very fast, although they have not been given much in the way of care either. But they're growing. And there's another little one right there. So I think we're kind of on the tail end of this, what will be interesting on this tour. Lots of persimmons to graft. I'm quite behind in my grafting this year. I did the Elaeagnus, and that was about the only thing I've grafted so far, other than doing some grafting demonstrations for people off-site. I grafted a few pear trees for a friend from an old pear tree that was in his back pasture that was a family favorite. This poor Ninebark totally stripped all of its leaves off. There's a couple sad flowers that have remained on there, but God, the deer are just tough on things sometimes. So these pink flags, there are some grafts back here onto autumn olive. And let's see. Yeah, there's one there. Not really showing any growth. So if these take, I will dig these up. That one is, well, it's got a bud popping. And another one about to. If these take, I'll dig them up and move them in the fall maybe, because they're off limits. Not been seeing many turtles yet this year, which is sad, because I like seeing those. The only one I've seen around the area is one that some idiot ran over in the road in a 25-mile-an-hour zone in a long straightaway, and you run over a slow-moving turtle. What a horrible person. Jesus. If I believed in karma, I would relish the thought of what that person was going to get in life, but I don't believe in karma. So yeah, this, sorry to change subject. This is a coppiced false indigo, and you can see these big thick stems are from 2 years ago, and this is the first year they're flowering, and then all this new growth at the bottom is what's growing from this season. And there's another one similar straight back that way. So persimmons, yeah, there are some. This is a graft I did last year, and there are just a few flowers here and there. I don't know if this graft has any flowers. Maybe it's not strong enough to support them anyway. But they're, I believe this mother, this is a sort of a suckering, yeah, here's flowers. There's a few. And I don't know conclusively. I want to say this is a female maybe, because I think there's one per leaf node. And that would, I think, point to it being a female. I think if it's a male, there are multiples per leaf node. But persimmons are strange. They can kind of have different branches that are different sexes, and some of them are male trees that bear fruit, and there's some funky stuff happening with persimmon sexuality, but leave that to somebody who knows a little bit more about it than I do. So yeah, we'll wrap this up here. Walking on the hedgerow, some things have grown well, some things have barely ever filled in. And I try to keep piling mulch and brush and stuff on some of these areas where this looks like deer browse problem here more than anything. The deer are not letting that get above knee high. So yeah, I've still got to keep making cages, dealing with the deer problems. And but yeah, that's how things are looking and how things are growing at the end of May. Now, we have had frost this late before. There's at least 2 years I can think of, maybe 3, where I've had frost like May 28th, 29th. It doesn't look like we're going to get that this year. I do see there's a low of like 43 in the forecast one of these next few days, but I'm optimistic that we won't quite get down to the freezing level here, hopefully, because that would really be disastrous. Things are pretty well advanced for the season compared to some other years. So yeah, that would be a bummer if that happens. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, of course, because I'm a pessimist, but it would be pretty lame. I'd be curious to see how many things would die from that, actually, because that would be a huge setback. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I think I'm going to upload this video and delete the other one that was taken in the evening, or maybe just keep it to private, because who wants to see the same video twice? And this is a little bit different, but probably a better version. The other lighting was not as good, and did get cut off partway through. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.